There are two words that are being used all the time by the globalists. Now, you may have noticed. There are two words that are being used so often that it clearly is the strident declaration of their intent. And make no mistake, this is a globalist movement. And you are the target. You and every other American that does not comply, and any other citizen around the world that does not comply. The two words, transition and accelerate. At one point, they were hidden inside the so-called Green New Deal verbiage. You know, transitioning to green energy and sustainable energy and such. But that is just a sliver of what they appear to really want. Because what the globalists want is everything. And they're using Mother Earth, just like Karl Marx did, to manipulate you into doing what you're told. Do what you're supposed to. They want control of farms, food, fuel, and mostly, like I say, you. It is being billed as the plan for saving the planet, or some such nonsense. And every time there's a heat wave or a storm of some terrible capacity, they dig their claws in deeper, pushing the propaganda that somehow it's your fault. They flood you with guilt. And they start doing that from a very early age, from the moment you're born now, pushing these agenda items, claiming it's for your own good. And if you actually want freedom and want to pursue the American dream, you're selfish. You're selfish. Wanting to provide a good life for you and your family is morally bankrupt, they say. That's why they preach you will own nothing and you will be happy. Anything else is not acceptable to the agenda, you see. John Kerry, climate phony, fresh off one of his private jets, continues to pontificate how we must crush American business. And the real target comes into full relief. It's America. Listen to what he says here.
So I think that the challenge for all of us now is that no one country can solve this problem by itself. We all have to be able to reduce the emissions. We have to accelerate the transition. We're behind. We're not yet fulfilling the promises that we made in Glasgow. So we have our work cut out for us, and I look forward to talking about that with you.
Accelerate the transition, he said it clearly. Now, it was once called Agenda 21. You've heard of that, of course. A plan devised in the early 1990s to guide the world into the 21st century. It sounded so lofty. But it has now been updated for a much more aggressive move, thus the acceleration of the transition or the transformation. And it involves the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and so far 179 countries. Welcome to Agenda 2030. And if you think they are not picking up the pace to get this done, well, I'm going to say you need to hear this. With all of this going on, you have certainly heard of Agenda 21, a move to change the world into the vision of the globalists. But what is the 2030 agenda exactly? Well, pay attention, because Klaus Schwab, the creator of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, have signed a deal to accelerate the transition to whatever this is. And whatever you think you know, you don't even know a fraction of it. Listen.
This afternoon, the Secretary General and Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, will witness the signing of a memorandum of understanding on a strategic partnership between the UN and the World Economic Forum, which outlines areas of cooperation to deepen engagement between the two institutions and to jointly accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda.
Accelerate the 2030 agenda. For the record, I don't fight against both of these twisted ideas, because private ownership is the cornerstone of freedom and free will and free people. I will surrender none of that. So if you're not yet convinced of what this plan is, you can find it on the United Nations website. But let me give you some of the highlights. There are 17 main points put out by the UN, 17 points that John Kerry, the United Nations, and the Biden administration, among others, all say must be accelerated right now. Accelerated right now. You see, they have a closing window. They realize in America the jig is up. They got busted. Okay, goal number 1, end all poverty worldwide. A noble goal, but far-fetched, because poverty will always exist, as it always has. But what they really want are centralized banks and a single digital currency. Much easier to track you that way, you see. Goal number 2, end hunger and achieve food security, which really means doing what they have started with the Dutch, which is under the guise of climate, take over the farms, take over food supplies. Keep that in mind. If you control the food, who do you control? Everyone. Goal 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being. In other words, demand compliance with any and all demands about health, say like mass vaccinations. Without dissent, it won't be allowed. Goal number 4, ensure inclusive and equitable, love that word, inclusive and equitable education, which is an easy way to say they will teach everyone what to think and destroy critical thinking along the way. Mass adherence to their talking points, better known as propaganda. Goal number 5, gender equality and empowering all women and girls. And that simply means forced family planning. They'll decide who does what and to whom and to who it happens. Goal number 6, ensure availability and sustainable water management. And again, this is dictating the supply through central planners of fresh water. By the way, one of the big keys here is to disperse wealth throughout the world. Wealthy nations must disperse their wealth. Gee, I think we're already seeing that. Aren't we $31 trillion in debt? But I digress. Goal 7, love this one. Sustainable, reliable, and modern energy for all, which means get ready to sit in the dark because they'll control the energy supply, which they're already working on. This is part of the acceleration of the transition. We're going through this transition. Goal 8, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, which means TPP, free trade zones, and massive control for mega corporations. Oh, yes, they play a big role here. And this is just the beginning, because the goals will also eliminate most, if not all, national borders so that workers can flow freely from place to place, but at the same time, restrict free travel dramatically and force people out of rural areas into concentrated urban settings. I've been telling you this for years, by the way. These little computers they want to put on your car, it's not to check the mileage or see how you're doing. It's to say, gee, Mr. Gruber, you've already gone to the store twice this week. You don't need to go again. But I don't have any food. Well, then you should have planned better, Mr. Gruber. I'm sorry, but the answer is no. I'm going to continue with this dissection of Agenda 2030 in just a moment right here on The Steve Gruber Show.